Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Wolf. I'm Lower Paxton Township's manager, and I will briefly summarize tonight's business meeting as the supervisors take the podium. The first meeting of the month of January for all municipalities in Pennsylvania occurs after the New Year's holiday. All municipalities are meeting today to reorganize for conducting business into the new year. As such, our agenda this evening is broken down into two components. One is the annual reorganization meeting, under which the board will see the oath of office issued to newly elected supervisors and the township auditor, as well as the board filling appointments of various vacancies in regard to their operations, such as its chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, secretary, and other positions that provide service to the board. Following the board's annual reorganization meeting, there will be a brief business meeting, and that business meeting has two items of old business. There is an ordinance which amends Chapter 94 of the Township's Codified Ordinances, which regulates curfews. And then there is a change order to the contract with GHD for engineering services in conjunction with the Township's Public Works Building Addition. Under new business, there is the Hutch Junkyard license renewal, a resolution appointing a certified public accountant to audit the 2017 fiscal year, and as well as subdivision and land development, which has improvement guarantees, and then the payment of bills. Ladies and gentlemen, that completes my summary of both agendas for the Board of Supervisors this evening. The supervisors are at the podium and ready to conduct business.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the January 2nd, 2018 annual reorganization meeting of the Board of Supervisors. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, to be led by Mr. Wolf.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the oath of office to newly elected supervisors Loman Henry and Chris Judd, to be administered by Judge Lindsay.
Mr. Judge, you ready to take the oath of office for supervisor of Lower Paxton Township? Okay, would you please place your left hand on the Bible and please raise your right hand? I, and state your name,
I, Christopher Jett,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
as supervisor of Lower Paxton Township
as supervisor of Lower Paxton Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Mr. Henry, are you ready to take the oath of office for supervisor of Lower Paxton Township?
I am.
Would you please place your left hand on the Bible, please raise your right hand. I, and state your name,
I, Loman Henry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
as supervisor of Lower Paxton Township
as supervisor of Lower Paxton Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I shake your hand, I'm not gonna hug you.
No, don't.
The next item on the agenda is the administering the oath of office to the newly elected auditor, Jason Screenack, to be done again by Judge Lindsay.
Sir, Mr. Screenack, are you ready to take your oath of office as auditor of Lower Paxton Township? I am. Would you please raise your right hand and say aye and repeat your name?
I, Jason Screenack,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
And I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
as auditor of Lower Paxton Township
as auditor of Lower Paxton Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
The next item on the agenda is election of the chairman of the board. Do I have any nominations?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman Pro Tem, I nominate Loman S. Henry for position of the chairman of the board.
Is there a second to that nomination?
I second.
Duly moved and seconded. Are there any further nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the nominations be closed.
Nominations are closed. That being the case, all those in favor of electing Loman Henry as chairman of the board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? Motion carried. Congratulations, Mr. Henry.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, fellow supervisors. I'm looking forward to a very successful 2 years here. And we will begin the process by now opening the floor for nominations for the position of Vice Chairman of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to put the name into nomination of Gary Chrisman for Vice Chairman of the Lower Paxton Township Supervisors.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Second. Are there any other nominations? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Chrisman.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
We'll now open nominations for the position of Lower Paxton Township Board Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to place the name of William B. Hawk as Township Secretary.
The name of William B. Hawk has been placed in nomination for Secretary. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
So seconded. Any other nominations? Hearing
Mr. Chairman,
none.
I'll move the nominations be closed.
Motion the nominations be closed. All in favor of Mr. William B. Hawk as Township Secretary signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Hawk.
Thank you.
And now we will open the floor for nominations for Treasurer.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that I'll nominate Robin Lindsay for Township Treasurer.
Robin Lindsay has been nominated for Township Treasurer. Do we have a second? I'll second. Do I hear any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the nominations be closed.
So moved that nominations be closed. All in favor of Robin Lindsay for Township Treasurer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mrs. Lindsay.
Pay the bills.
We'll now open the floor for nominations for the position of Assistant Township Secretary Treasurer.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Chris Judd for Assistant Township Secretary Treasurer.
Chris Judd has been nominated for Assistant Township Secretary Treasurer. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Nomination of Chris Judd for Assistant Township Secretary Treasurer. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the nominations for the Assistant Secretary Treasurer be closed.
The motion has been made to close nominations. All in favor of Chris Judd for Assistant Township Secretary Treasurer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Judd. Even the new guy gets one. We'll move now to the election of a vacancy board chairman. Do we have a motion for appointment to the position of vacancy board chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Dan Mosel as vacancy board chairman.
J. Daniel Mosel has been nominated for vacancy board chairman. Is there a second?
Second.
Nomination of J. Daniel Mosel for vacancy Board Chairman has been motioned and seconded. Any additional nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the nominations for vacancy Board Chairman be closed.
Motion has been made to close nominations. All in favor of J. Daniel Mosel, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Mosel, congratulations. At this point, the board must appoint a township manager. Do we have a motion for the appointment of a township manager?
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Chairman?
move that we,
Oh, you want to do it, Gary? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we appoint a township manager to be George S. Wolf.
We have a motion to appoint George S. Wolf as Lower Paxton Township Manager. Do we have a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I move the nominations be closed.
All in favor of George Wolf as Lower Paxton Township Manager, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Wolf, congratulations.
Thank you very much, board members.
How many years does this make now?
This starts 29.
29 years. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
And now we'll move to the appointment of Township Solicitor. Do we have a motion for the appointment of a Township Solicitor?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the Stein Law Office as a township solicitor for the township.
Stein Law Offices have been motioned as appointment for Township Solicitor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any other, we really don't need any others. So, we have a motion to close.
I have no other nominations.
No other nominations?
No, therefore, Mr. Chairman, I'll move we close the nominations for township
Are
solicitor.
you sure?
I could reconsider.
All in favor of retaining the Stein Law Offices as Township Solicitor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and nobody opposed. Congratulations, Mr. Stein.
Thank you very much.
It's been a long time for you too, hasn't it?
30 years in June.
Wow.
Well,
Ah, very good. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We need a motion for the appointment of a township engineer.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Herbert, Rowland, and Grubik as our township engineer.
It's been moved that Herbert, Rowland, and Grubik be appointed township engineer. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay, we need now to appoint a representative to the Capital Region Council of Governments and also an alternate representative to the Capital Region Council of Governments.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hawk?
I nominate Robin Lindsay as the representative with Gary Chrisman as the alternate.
It's been moved that Robin Lindsay be our representative to the Capital Region COG with Gary Chrisman as an alternate. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And apparently nobody no. We need to appoint a voting delegate to the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors State Convention and an alternate delegate. Do we have a motion for appointment of a delegate and alternate?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we select William B. Hawk as our voting delegate to the PSATS State Convention, with Robin Lindsay as the alternate to the state convention.
It has been moved that William B. Hawk be nominated as voting delegate to the PSAT State Convention with Robin Lindsay as an alternate. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, we need to elect a delegate to the Act 32 Countywide Earned Income Tax Committee, and also an alternate to that coveted position. So, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we appoint Tim Hauk, our business manager, to serve as the delegate to the Act 32 Countywide Earned Income Tax Committee, with Mr. William B. Hawk as the alternate.
It has been moved to appoint Tim Hauk as delegate to the Act 32 Countywide Earned Income Tax Committee with Mr. William B. Hawk as alternate. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And nobody opposed. Now would be the time to establish a treasurer's bond in the amount of $1 million for the township. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Been moved by Mr. Judd that we establish a treasurer's bond in the amount of $1 million. Do we have a second?
I will second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We now need to designate a depository for township funds. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve M&T Bank as our official depository for the township.
Mr. Chrisman has moved that we appoint M&T Bank as our official depository. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It is the time to establish regular board meetings for 2018, and the board is going to undertake a change in time for meetings in an effort to make the meeting times more standardized so that members of the public will know what meeting is taking place on what day. Our plan is that we will move our regular legislative meetings to 7 o'clock on the first and third Tuesdays, and we will hold workshop meetings at 7 o'clock on the second Tuesday. Thus, all the meetings will be held at 7 o'clock and be consistent across the board. So do we have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we move our first and third Tuesdays to 7 and our workshop meeting, which is the second Tuesday of the month, to 7 o'clock.
So moved by Mrs. Lindsay. Do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Mr. Chrisman. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And nobody's opposed.
Mr. Wolf, can I just ask a question? When will that start?
We'll advertise it for next week.
Okay, thank you.
So that will begin with the workshop meeting
Next-
next Tuesday. Will be at 7 o'clock rather than 6 o'clock.
Yes, we'll place that ad, we'll have to have it in, well, probably end up being in Sunday's Patriot News
Right.
to give us a 24-hour in advance, but we have enough time to get it in for the Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
January.
At this point, we need a motion to authorize the secretary and treasurer to pay all fixed expenses, including payroll, lighting, telephone, heat, sewer rentals, and other discounted expenses, which are the result of prior action of the Board of Supervisors.
So
we have a
moved, Mr. Chairman. That's straightforward.
That's straightforward. Moved by Mr. Chrisman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hawk. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Now let's move to appointment to various boards and commissions. And we will begin with appointment to a vacant seat on the Lower Paxton Township Authority. There is, I believe, a 2-year term available there due to the resignation of Mr. Seeds, who has moved from the township. So do we have a motion to appoint a member of the Lower Paxton Township Authority to fill the balance of that term?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to put the name of Chris Judd in nomination to fill the 2-year term of, unexpired term of William Seeds, please.
The name of...
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't I say Chris Judd?
Yes.
Okay, Chris Judd, yes, okay.
Chris Judd has been placed in motion to be a member of the Lower Paxton Township Authority, filling the unexpired term of Mr. Seeds. Do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any other names to place forward? Hearing none, all in favor of Chris Judd, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Judd. You're picking up all sorts of jobs this evening here. That's
Thank you for joining us, Chris, on the.
Looking forward to it.
We have appointments to the Arts Council, and there would be 5 seats. This is a 1-year term.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, 1-year term, and all members desire reappointment.
So do we have a motion to reappoint Mary Grace Newsom, Stanley Smith, Patricia Crawford, Lorraine Rogers, and Sarah Steinhauer to the Arts Council for a 1-year term?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 We have a 1-year terms available on the Audit Committee, and the Audit Committee is comprised of Gary A. Chrisman, William B. Hawk, and George Wolf. Do we have a motion to appoint those 3 individuals to a 1-year term on the Audit Committee?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Judd. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. The Community Engagement Committee, we have 2 vacancies, but at this point, we do not have volunteers for that, so we will hold that over to another time. That would move us on to the Friendship Center operating.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
you do have under the Community Engagement Committee.
yes.
Yes, 5 members who have one-year terms that want reappointed.
so they must be reappointed as well now?
Yes.
Okay. Then we would accept the motion to appoint Pat Crawford, Tom Thomas, Bruce Senoff, Jim Seidler, and Deborah Correll to one-year terms on the Community Engagement Committee.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bill Hawk. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And of course, we will be looking for 2 more volunteers for that committee. Now we'll move on to the Friendship Center Operating Board. We have one vacancy for a 3-year term, and Denise Hussar is desiring reappointment. Do we have a motion to reappoint Denise Hussar?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The Greenway Committee, I'm seeing all blanks.
They are blanks. Board members, I do know that Roy Newsom has indicated that although he still wants to serve on the Planning Commission, he is the Planning Commission's designation to the Greenway Committee, but he no longer desires to hold that office. At this point in time, I don't have any other indication from the other members of the committee, so I request that the board table this item until a future meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll table that to a future meeting and move on to the Parks and Recreation Board, where there are 3 5-year terms, 2 of which we do not have nominees this evening. But Neil Johnson would like reappointed to a 5-year term on the Parks and Recreation Board. Do we have a motion?
I'll move we appoint Neil Johnson to Park and Recreation Board for a 5-year term, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Chrisman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Judd. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Planning Commission. We have 2 seats open on the Planning Commission. A 4-year term, including the Planning Commission Chairman, Mr. Leidy, as well as Steve Libhart. Do we have a motion to reappoint Mr. Leidy and Mr. Libhart to 4-year terms on the Planning Commission?
I'll make that motion.
So moved by Mr. Judd. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by
Choose one.
Mr. Hawk or
Doesn't matter.
whoever.
Doesn't matter.
whoever. Well,
Choose a name.
seconded by everybody. You guys are really popular. Everyone wants to second your nomination. All in favor of reappointing Mr. Leidy and Mr. Libhart, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The Public Safety Committee, we have 1-year terms for everyone who serves on that committee, and these are designated by position, including the chief of the Colonial Park Fire Company, the chief of the Linglestown Fire Company, the chief of the Paxtonia Fire Company, the president of the Colonial Park Fire Company, the president of Linglestown Volunteer Fire Company, and the president of Paxtonia Fire Company, the fire marshal, the public safety director, a representative from South Central EMS, and the emergency operations director. Do we have a motion to appoint the individuals who occupied those positions to a 1-year term on the Public Safety Committee?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Shade Tree Commission, we have 1 opening. Is there any nomination for the Shade Tree Commission?
Where?
Do we have any nominations to the Shade Tree Commission? Okay, no nominations at this time, so we'll hold that over for another meeting. We also have a 3-year term available on the South Central Emergency Medical Services Board representative, and we are not prepared to fill that this evening. The Zoning Hearing Board,
No openings.
no opening.
There's no,
Everybody's staying.
Yes.
So that would complete all our board and commission appointments at this time, except for those that have been tabled. That being the case, we will move now to our business meeting and open the floor for any public comment. Does any member of the public wish to address the Board of Supervisors? Mr. Epstein?
First of all, congratulations to everybody and their appointments. I'm not really sure I could keep up with them, but quite a commitment. Eric Epstein, Chairman of Swan. I have just one comment for tonight at this point, but also wanted to let the chairman know that I wish to comment on 5B, which is the change order for GHD, and I also wish to comment later on 6B, which is the subdivision and land development issue. So I don't know, rather than comment now, probably be best to comment while the issues are ripe, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, you should comment, if the issue's on the agenda, you should comment at that time, so we have all those comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you, and I have just brief comments for those. Wanted to congratulate the Planning Commission for the great job they've been doing with the comp plan. It's been very inclusive, very, in my mind, deliberative, and it's been a model. And I did see how popular Fred and Steve were before, so I'm just climbing on that train. But I do have a formal request. The minutes, which I'm in possession of for April through August, are really well done and, in my mind, should be posted on the website. They have yet to be posted on the website, so I'm making a formal request that the minutes from the comp plan meetings, not the planning commission meetings, be posted on the website. It's really a good way for people in the community to stay abreast of what's occurring, because the comp plan is so important. So absent any kind of technical challenge, and I haven't talked to Fred about this, just formally requesting if after the minutes are approved, we could put those on the website. And again, I'm not really sure logistically how we go about doing that, but it's been a wonderful experience, and it's very difficult for people in the community to get to those meetings. They're convened on a monthly basis. I think the next meeting is January 23rd at 6 here. But that's the only request I have tonight. If after approval we could have them posted, I think it'd be a great public service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we are, as you know, in the process of moving forward with the hiring of a communications director. And one of the main duties of that position is going to be to greatly add to the amount of information that is available on the township website. And we'll certainly communicate that suggestion to that individual as soon as that individual is on board. Do we have any other members of the public who wish to address the Board of Supervisors? Any other members of the public wish to address the Board of Supervisors? Okay, seeing none, the chairman really doesn't have any comments since we're just getting started. Do members of the board have any comments they would like to make at this time? Wow, okay. No members' comments. So we'll move then to the approval of minutes from the meeting of September 19th, 2017. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the minutes of September the 19th, 2017 as prepared and circulated.
It's been moved by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Hawk. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Never heard of anybody opposing approval of minutes.
There have been some corrections.
Some corrections, maybe. Let's now move to the manager's report. Mr. Wolf.
Yes, board members and everybody listening in the audience or at home, we have a notice from Waste Management. Due to the Christmas holiday last week, their trash and recycle collections were 1 day delayed. Christmas holiday was on a Monday, so everything ran Tuesday through Saturday. Friday customers would have been picked up on Saturday. With the snow that we received on Saturday, they were not able to finish their Friday routes. So they started Friday routes, which were left over from Saturday, on today's date, which is Tuesday. So they are running a day late, but it's a day late with 2 holidays in between. So my recyclables haven't been picked up, and neither has my whole neighborhood, but Waste Management has made robocalls to all their customers to let them know that they are running late, 1, due to the holidays, but also 2, due to the weather that we experienced. And I would also note that trash collection is now occurring with temperatures below 10 degrees, and that does slow down collection as well. Board members, 2 things that our community should be aware of. There will be a Member Appreciation Day at the Friendship Center on Friday, January 26th. So members will be treated to a special day, and we ask them to attend and have fun. And then the climbing wall at the Friendship Center will have a grand opening on January 28th from 1 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. That's Sunday, January 28th. This will be a free event for the entire community, and we hope that the community will turn out and see the new facility. That's all I have for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. And now we move to old business, and item A, we have proposed ordinance number 1716, amending Chapter 94 of the codified ordinances, which are regulations governing curfews. Mr. Wolf and Mr. Stein.
Mr. Chairman, my introductions are going to be as brief as yours. This basically amends our curfew regulations in Lower Paxton Township. The ordinance has been duly advertised for public hearing this evening and would be appropriate for Mr. Stein to conduct the public hearing.
Thank you. This is time and date set for the public hearing on ordinance 17-16, which would amend Chapter 94 of the codified ordinances, which contain regulations governing curfews. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on ordinance 17-16? Nice. Mr. Chairman, it would be ordered this time to close the public hearing on ordinance 17-16, and the board may take action if it so desires.
Okay, a public hearing having been duly held, do we have a motion? What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve ordinance 2017-16, which amends Chapter 94 of the codification ordinances, which are regulating the governing of curfews, as presented.
Mr. Chrisman has moved the adoption of ordinance 2017-16. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hawk. Any board discussion on the proposed ordinance?
We've seen this.
Do we want to say what we're doing, what they are?
Well, that's a rather lengthy. Mr. Wolf, this proposed ordinance, are there any significant changes from current rules in it that the public should be aware of?
There are, I wouldn't call them significant changes. It was basically a cleanup of an ordinance that was very old. There are multiple minor changes throughout the document. Let me see if I can.
I think what we could do, if we could just say, under the age of 18, could you tell them the times? And under the age of 15, if you could tell them the times, please. I mean, I have it.
And again, this is
Well-
something that once we have our communications director, we can add this information to the website so it can be viewed in advance.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, this was posted on the website in advance.
It was?
It was.
Okay.
And it was also available for public inspection at the Township Municipal Center
And
lobby.
I would just ask, Mr. Chairman, it's clear what the amendment says, but not necessarily if we're changing anything of substance, that's all.
We're not changing anything of substance, but I will note that curfew for minors, it's unlawful for any minor 17 or under to be or remain in or upon the streets or public properties within the township at night during the period from 12 midnight and ending 5 a.m. It shall be unlawful for any minor 15 or years of age or younger to remain in or on any public streets or properties within the township at night, beginning at 10 p.m. To 5 a.m. So, two classifications: minors that are 17 and between the age of 15 and 17, it's 12 midnight to 5 a.m., and minors 15 or younger, it's 10 p.m. to 5 a.m.
And that is what we currently do?
I believe, I believe there's a 1 hour change in I think it was 11 to 12. So it's made a little less stringent at this point.
Okay. And I think I remember earlier discussion about this. First time is a warning, and the second time, is that by practice, or is that in the actual ordinance?
Well, okay.
It's under the violation penalties in Section A, where it talks about The parents having custody shall be warned and written delivered in person.
So first time a warning,
And then the second time, there can be a fine.
Right, the second one.
Goes
and
before the
is that-
magisterial district judge.
right, outlined in item B. 94-6, under violations and penalties, there's A, B, and C.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this before we vote?
I think also that, I think parents should read it because there is some provisions in there for if you're working or if you're coming from a school activity also.
Actually, Mr. Hastert, I spoke incorrectly. I did not post that one. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. Do you have a specific question, Mr. Hastert? Yes.
That's where the communications manager will be on top of things.
Yes.
Eric Epstein, a Central Dauphin School District Board member, and Robin, you just had said something about school activities. That was
Yeah,
my concern,
it's-
because if you have an event in
It's in
State
here.
College and you're coming home late at night, I'm assuming there's a provision that that's not a violation if you're on.
There is. It's a certain, like, I think 30 minutes, and it's with work also, so.
Okay, I just wanted to note that because some of the participants in our extracurricular activities are coming from a long distance.
Do we have any other public comment or questions? Any other comments from board members?
Just a comment from Mr. Epstein. It is found in item F, under 94.3. It says when returning home by a direct route from and within 30 minutes of the termination of a school activity or an activity of religious or other voluntary association. So it's covered.
Good.
And it's more than, as you heard, it's more than just school.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that the board approve ordinance 2017-16.
Mr. Chairman, I'll call for the question on the motion.
Question has been called. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And ordinance 2017-16 is adopted. Item B under old business is change order number 1 to the contract with GHD for engineering services in conjunction with the Public Works Building addition. Mr. Wolf, can we have some, for the benefit of those watching on TV and sitting here in the meeting room, indicate what the exact changes are?
Board members, this is a closeout change order for engineering services, which has been submitted to the township. It was submitted several months ago. There has been multiple points of discussion between the board and individuals from GHD. The change order is originally in the amount of $44,284.25. That came to us by a request, I believe, in July of last year. The board asked for additional documentation, and that was provided in October. Upon further discussion of that additional documentation, the board requested that I speak with Scott Croswell, who is the township's representative at GHD, in regard to this project, and see if we can further negotiate that amount. The email before you this evening indicates that GHD has indicated a willingness to reduce its fee from $44,284.25, that's change order fee, to $34,716.32. And Scott is here this evening to address any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Yeah, as Mr. Wolf mentioned,
Scott, may we have your name, please?
yes. Scott Croswell with GHD, I'm a principal with the firm. Is the mic on? There we go. So yes, as I mentioned, Following the meeting, November 28th, we met with Mr. Wolf and offered the reduction in our change order by the amount that was stated. That's a value of $9,567, about a 21% reduction in our requested fee. And so I guess some of the board members have heard portions of this before. I guess at this time I would just welcome questions related to this matter.
But I had a question. I have an email here from Eston on Monday, July the 11th. I'm just going to read a little portion. It says, "The extra time spent has also helped control the change orders. GHD is going to do our best to absorb these costs, but if we are unable to do, we will ask to be compensated at the end of the project. For now, we will separate this time in our invoices as a way of properly tracking it." He goes on to say, "For budgetary purposes, we estimate the cost of these extra meetings could total $7,000, depending on the number of meetings and required GHD attendees." So that bill went from $7,000 to $44,000, and now it's only down to $34,000. So I guess my question is, $7,000 to $34,000, that's a lot of money.
So that email, was it?
Yeah. I don't
You
think
get
you are on,
feedback.
Scott.
Keeps going off.
It was on.
All right. That email was addressing the original project timeframe, which was to end in December of 2016. So that $7,000 was a projection through the original completion date of December 2016. The project, due to weather delays and some contractor delays, actually extended another 5 months beyond that. So that original estimate of $7,000, again, was for the original contract duration. There was an additional 5 months of construction activities, which required still the additional meetings, which were addressed in that email, but also GHD's continued services to provide part-time observation on the project, to go out and coordinate with the contractors to observe the construction to make sure it was in accordance with the contract documents. So, what we have already stated in the meeting on the 28th was that our project manager could have done a much better job communicating with the township on our budget status. But we did incur those expenses for the 5 months where the contract extended past the original date. And, I think it comes down to a lack of communication from our project manager to the township.
Yeah, because why weren't you in touch with us and letting us know, okay, we want to let you know we're at the $20,000, now we're at $25,000. I mean, to be hit with a bill of $44,000 with no communication, that's a lot of taxpayers' money. And it's not our fault that there was a communication breakdown there.
Yes, I think, we began to communicate that April of 2017. So the project was supposed to end the end of December of 2016. At the beginning of April, we began those communications and notified the township that at that time our projected overrun was going to be $38,000.
That's just a lot of money when you said $7,000 here and now you jumped to $38,000 in a couple of months.
Do we have any additional board member questions or comments? Okay. Any questions, comments from the public? Eric?
Eric Epstein, Chairman of SWAN. I'm not going to steal it. First of all, I want to make sure everybody has a copy of the cost overruns. And I want to thank Mr. Wolf. I did file a right-to-know request on this issue. And I was at the meeting on Tuesday, November 28th, which was held for 15 minutes. It was actually right before the Planning Commission meeting. And I want to applaud Mr. Chrisman and Ms. Lindsay because they noted at the time that they would not be supporting a $44,000 increase, and at a minimum, they would support $7,000. What you heard tonight is what I heard before, that the lack of communication came from the engineer. I don't think taxpayers should subsidize poor communication from our contractor. If you follow the ball like I followed it, this is what I was able to determine, and I could be wrong here, but that GHD had contacted the township in July 2016, again in April 2017, that there was an acknowledged lack of communication. That, in my mind, is not the taxpayer's problem, and that's something that Foursquare should be borne, in my opinion, by GHD. In addition, several questions that weren't raised or addressed tonight include this. I think GHG made the decision not to have a full-time person on site. They made the decision to have a part-time person on site. Well, that was their decision. That's how they got the contract. That's how they won the bid. You don't come back later and say, hey, I should have had a full-time person, and then you make up the $34,000 for not having a full-time on-site supervisor. You know, the question remains, there's two questions. One, if we had a full-time on-site supervisor, would communication have been better? And in addition to that, what would the cost of a full-time on-site supervisor have been compared to that chief of bills that we're getting right now? And I think one of the issues that needs to be addressed is that, look, what's the cost comparison? If you had a full-time person there, what would have been the cost? What's the difference between a full-time and a part-time person? And at the end of the day, I guess my concern is I just don't want to reward poor planning and poor communication. They made a commitment. You know, this is business. This is how it works in America. You know, you signed a contract. You know, I'm sorry that they incurred those costs, but they did that based to their own negligence by not communicating. When they did communicating, they gave us a number of 7. We're at 44. $37,000 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And it's not meant to disparage GHG. I think they're good at what they do, but they fell down here. And as an educator, maybe Gary will disagree with me, that when you make a mistake, you don't get rewarded. You usually get disciplined, and you hope that you learn from that mistake. I view it as educable, and moving forward, we can do a better job. But I really stick with what Gary and Robin said at the meeting in November, is that if it's $7,000, and if that's what we agree to, I could live with that as a taxpayer. But there's a really big difference between 7 and 44 grand, especially when the onus and the problem, I think, lays at the feet of the contractor.
And I'm going to agree with you on this one, Eric, because we had issues with this from the beginning.
Thank you.
There were communication issues in the very beginning also.
Well, one way to communicate your dissatisfaction is not to approve $34,000. I would recommend $7,000 as an option, an alternative, and a compromise.
Scott, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the one question that was raised was what would the cost of a full-time RPR have been? And these are some numbers that I had jotted down. You know, it would depend on the rate of that person, that individual that would have been provided, but you know, you would have been looking at $70,000 to $80,000 to have had a full-time RPR basically on site. And you know, I will just say that you're right, that was part of our contract, part-time observation, but part of the reason that we did that was to provide a cost-effective means of overseeing the project to the township from the beginning. You know, it was a complex project. Did it require full-time observation? Probably at times. But, you know, we thought that because of our proximity to the site, that we could provide part-time observation and still maintain the intent of the contract documents. So just as a point of reference, it was a question that was raised, and that's probably what the cost would have been.
Mr. Chris?
Okay. Mr. Croswell, as you know, I had asked that it be withdrawn from the agenda the last time, so there'd be an opportunity to sit down and review all of this with another opportunity to look at it. I'm going to ask you to consider that again. I'm going to ask you to allow us to withdraw this from the agenda and ask you to go back with your staff and sit down with our township manager, Mr. Wolf, and see if these numbers can't be a better set of numbers that would be acceptable to us. I'm saying that because I have a concern for you as well as this board. I can only speak for myself, but my perception, and right now my perception is my reality, you may not have success if you ask for a final vote on this issue tonight.
Yes, I appreciate that. I would just point out one other sort of, to frame the project. I mean, our overall request with the original contract plus the original request of the $44,000, I didn't recalculate the number, is an engineering fee of about 5.7%. And I think for a job of this size, that's a very economical number. You could, on a job of this size, see engineering costs as high as 10 or 12%. So again, our best interest was in mind of the township of trying to provide a very economical solution to the construction project. But we will go back and revisit this with Mr. Wolf and be prepared to speak
I would
again.
appreciate that. Thank you very much. So therefore, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask that this be withdrawn from the agenda for further consideration.
Motion to withdraw item B under old business. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, we'll send that back for further discussion. Okay, under new business, we need to renew a junkyard license, the Hutch Junkyard license.
Yes, board members?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hawk?
this has always been a favorite of Mr. Seed's since Hutch's Junkyard is not too far from where he used to live. And I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Seeds about a week and a half ago, so it'd be my pleasure to put a motion on the floor approving the renewal of the Hutch's Junkyard license.
Do we have a second?
You have a second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wolf, did you have comments you wish to make?
Just wanted to note that this is located at 6861 Blue Ridge Avenue. It's the only junkyard in Lower Paxton Township, and by our codified ordinances requires an annual license.
Any additional comments relative to the renewal of the junkyard license or public comment? Hearing none, this has been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we have Resolution 1801, appointing a certified public accountant to audit the funds and accounts for Lower Paxton Township for the 2017 fiscal year. Mr. Wolf, who is the?
Board members, the auditor in question is Zelenowski Axelrod. And their proposed price is $37,130. Board members, you have to take this action annually. However, you have previously accepted a 3-year proposal from ZNA to audit the township's accounts. For 2016 and 2017, the audit fee is the same as 2015. And then for auditing the 2018 fiscal year and 2019, the fee increases by 2.5%. You have reached that 3-year agreement and have it in place. However, even over and above that agreement, you are still required by code to annually adopt a resolution authorizing the certified public accountant to perform the audit.
Okay, that being the case, do we have a motion to adopt Resolution 1801?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve Resolution 2018-01, first resolution for this calendar and fiscal year, appointing ZNA, and I'm not going to pronounce the name, it's much easier to do ZNA, the certified public accountant to audit the funds and accounts for Lower Paxton Township for 2017 fiscal year in the amount of $37,130 as presented by Mr. Wolf.
Mr. Chrisman has moved adoption of Resolution 1801. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hawk. Any comments or questions from board members? Any public comment or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 1801 is adopted. We'll move now to subdivision and land development. We have a number of improvement guarantees, et cetera. Mr. Wolf.
Board members, typically, unless you have questions, you approve this by motion without further discussion.
That being the case, do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we're going to add one more item to the agenda, and I will turn to Mr. Chrisman for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I will move to appoint Michael Miller, special counsel for the township, to handle a personnel matter for the township.
And Mr. Miller is with Eckert Siemens.
Jacob Siemens.
Eckert Siemens.
Yeah, Eckert Siemens.
Eckert Siemens. It's been moved to appoint Mr. Miller as special counsel for a personnel matter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hawk. Any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that brings us to the payment of bills for the Lower Paxton Township and the Lower Paxton Township Authority. Madam Treasurer.
I make a motion that we pay the bills of Lower Paxton Township and Lower Paxton Township Authority, including their P-card purchases also.
We'll now have a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Judd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's where we miss Mr. Seats, right?
Exactly.
Not going to be the only time you're going to say that.
That's, no, it's probably not the only time I will say that. Do we have any other announcements or comments from the board? Prior to and following this meeting, the board will meet to receive information from the township manager. That being the case, a reminder, we have moved the meeting time. Our workshop session next Tuesday will begin here in this room at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second. All in favor, aye.
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 Thank you, meeting adjourned. Oh, there's actually a gavel, too. There we go.
One to stay forever.
Because he was giving that verbal, and when he was giving that verbal, I was writing it down.
Oh, no. Certified public accountant.